So you pivoted a little bit. And I think maybe folks like Lane Norton, other folks would tell you, well, the reason why the sugar diet's working is you're in a calorie deficit.
So you're in a calorie deficit because you're pro-metabolic, though, because you're kind of amping your metabolism up a little bit. So I do think that that's interesting, and that was something that really caught my attention in the beginning. And I realized that I did say that I'm like no longer actually following like the real specifics of the study that was done with the FGF21 and the 20% increase in your metabolic rate and stuff like that. But I still think there's a lot of utility in bringing carbohydrates into the picture. And I think that, let's just say that for argument's sake, by bringing in some carbs, I'm only getting like 5% difference in metabolism manipulation. It's like, that's a completely different way of looking at caloric deficit, bringing caloric deficit to you via your metabolic rate being increased. And that's exactly what something like anabolic steroids can do and performance enhancing drugs can do. And I think people on the internet are confused because they see some of my pictures and like, oh, well, you're on the juice. Yeah, I've been on the juice for 30 years. So nothing's changed with that. So then what makes my body change? Only the manipulation of the nutrition. Right. And then there's some people who are like, oh, you're probably on a ton of growth. You're probably using insulin and like all these other things. And I can't really worry about those other things that people are saying, but it's fair, whatever. I'm a target, I put information out there, and I accept the challenge of, people having their conjectures towards me, but it's really been the nutrition that's been the biggest change. And for me, for right now, I'm not surprised by it because I have done a bodybuilding diet in the past, but really just removing the fat, I think, is a really good rule for a lot of people. And I don't mean removing the fat completely. I think that could be very dangerous for a lot of people to get rid of fat completely. But some of my thoughts on it, I'd love to get your thoughts on it, are I don't think that fat burning from your body or your body starting to lose body fat, starting to burn body fat, I don't think it's the exact same as nutritional fats. However, it's my understanding that they do hold some nutritional value. One of the problems with the fats on our body is the fats on our body, you are what you eat. So a lot of times the fat that's on our body is PUFAs and seed oils and a lot of this other kind of junky stuff. So as you're losing that, for some people, I've heard some people like they start to lose weight pretty quickly and their body almost gets like toxified rather than detoxified because of some of the fats that they ate years prior. But you still need to lose that body fat. You still really need to lose the body fat. So just some thoughts in my head are that you're getting some of your nutrition from your own body. So if somebody out there starts to reduce their fat grams down to 20 or 30 and does it not every day in perpetuity, but does it for 3 to 4 days, has a little break, 3 to 4 days, has a little break, something like that would be more of a recommendation. I say have a little break. Maybe you go 20 to 30 grams of fat, and then maybe on those off days, maybe you double that. Maybe you go 40 to 60, and you kind of toggle back and forth until you get the desired results you're looking for. But people need to pull body fat off of their body, and I feel like this is a great way forward for me. I don't know my body fat percentage, but I'm definitely under 10%, and I'd still like to go down another couple percent. But I want it to be comfortable. Like I know how to do it through bodybuilding, but when I was bodybuilding, I utilized a lot of drugs. I did a lot of cardio, and there was so much like meal prep going on. Yeah. And now this is just a different strategy. I'm like, oh, I'll just grab some rice cakes and throw some honey on them.
And that's it.
And I'm ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's so fascinating because when we think about the physiology of fat loss, we know that you need low insulin, high glucagon, growth hormone generally spikes a little bit, and then there's this lipolysis from the fat cell and so forth. So to me, mechanistically, it seems counterintuitive that one could lose body fat from what I know, that way of thinking, understanding how the physiology works with hormone-sensitive lipase, lipoprotein lipase, all these things, right?
I love what you're saying right there, and I think that there's some sort of key factor in there somewhere with the insulin.
Yeah.
Because my fasted insulin was low on my blood
3,
work.
you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was,
and triglycerides are 35, very low.
Right.
So to me, it's like causing me to rethink about all these, because we worked out yesterday. I saw you with your shirt off, virtually no visceral fat, nice 6-pack, more so than most other people. So you're like, well, gosh, and I've seen what you've been eating, right? I mean, you had pancakes this morning and other things throughout the day. So I'm like, this is curious to me. Very interesting.
It's interesting, and it's just like another route.
Yeah.
You know, it's like another way of doing things. And I know that there's people out there with great diets. You know, there's Dr. Ted Naiman with his conjecture with protein leveraging. Like, it's awesome. Protein leveraging is awesome.
Yeah.
And I still utilize protein leveraging. Like, if I'm at home and I'm fidgety and I want to eat something, it's like I'll just down a big thing of like non-fat Greek yogurt. You know, and I know that there's people on the other side that are like, no, we need the fat, and I understand that, and I think that that's still. You could still do that. Like, those diets are great. Like, by no means am I saying that carnivore doesn't work. By no means am I saying that keto's not good, or that those diets were trash, or that I was lying when I was doing them, or anything like that. Those diets were great, and they were great for me at the time. And maybe they'll be great for me again in the future. It's just that, like, I found out this other way. And I'm not even saying the way that I found is even new, because there really is nothing new under the sun. This is sort of repackaged, and when you kind of hear about some of this diet, you're like, wait a second, wasn't Mike Menser talking about this? You're like, wasn't some of these famous bodybuilders, weren't they talking about having like 10 to 20% of your calories come from fat? And even Stan Efferding, who, you know, his Vertical Diet book, I think, is one of the better diets out there. Stan is a promoter of eating more food. He's more of he comes more from the side of being more pro-metabolic. Like, let's get our metabolism higher. Let's not have you focus in on 1,500 calories so you can lose weight.
Yeah.
Let's actually reverse engineer this a little bit. How do we get you to burn 2,000 calories or 1,800 calories so you can be more comfortable while you're still able to lose weight? But even with Stan, he'll say, I think his diet calls for around 30% fat. I'll say, look, man, you want to get shredded, you might have to chop that down. You might have to chop that down in half, and you might have to even chop it down lower.
Why?
I think the calorie equation is a huge part of it, but I also just think that fat turns into fat easier. I know a lot of people say that. I know there's...
Unless you're in a full-blown ketogenic diet.
Maybe. Yeah. Or if you're in a caloric deficit, right? If you're in a caloric deficit, you can kind of do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But being in a caloric deficit, it's hard to manage.
Long term.
It can be really hard to manage. And there's people that can figure it out, and there's people that have the satiety signals and stuff like that. And I do also understand that what I'm proposing is like a double-edged sword. Most people out there, like people that are listening to this, don't necessarily need this advice that I'm about to say, but it's the general public that needs this advice. The general public does not need a diet.
Yeah.
They don't need a diet. Everyone thinks they need a diet. They don't need a diet. They need to have a way of eating that prevents them from binging, from stressfully just hammering food in the pantry, just obliterating all the food they have in their house when they come home from work, when they had a stressed day, when they didn't realize they had to pick up their kid from soccer on that day, and then they had to pick up the other kid from all the way across the other side of town, drive them through all these different stoplights to get them home, and then they're just like, you know, I'm just going to order pizza, or I'm just going to roll through the In-N-Out burger, or whatever the convenient thing is. It just gets to be a little easier to do that, and I think a lot of people just need to be able to figure out ways of preventing themselves from binging. And we start thinking about that, it's like it really opens up your eyes to the possibility of a lot of different types of diet strategies.
Do you think the sugar diet would work if you didn't train so much and have as much muscle? Because I feel like athletes can tolerate a much higher threshold of carbohydrates before they become detrimental.
I believe 100%. I mean, the more muscle mass you have, it seems like almost all the research and all the even just kind of empirical evidence that we have, that people just tend to handle carbs way better, right? We hear that, I mean, that's bodybuilding coaches and bodybuilders along with athletes. They are normally really hammering carbohydrates. And I think that, I think when it comes to your average person isn't really looking at carbohydrates the same way as maybe the athlete is.
Yeah.
especially the bodybuilder. Like, let's just tip our hats to bodybuilders because they're so diligent with their nutrition. Even athletes aren't that diligent with their nutrition, but athletes are thinking about carbohydrates for performance. They're thinking about, and they might be thinking about just eating, a cheeseburger with the bun or whatever. Maybe their interpretation of carbohydrates is a little different than what a bodybuilder might do, because a bodybuilder is going to have, rice and chicken breast or something like that. But I agree with you 100% that I'm going to metabolize carbohydrates easier, so therefore I could have more of them. Therefore, that makes the diet a little easier. However, at least in the early stages of this so far, I do think a lot of people could try 1,500 calories or so from pretty much pure carbohydrate and see how that works for them. In addition to whatever other foods they're going to eat, maybe getting, half a gram to 1 gram per pound of lean body weight in protein and getting in like some minimal amounts of fat. But I mean, I just think the bodybuilders have had it right. That's how they've stayed lean for so long. They really chop their fat down, and fat has 9 calories per gram. And I hate being so strapped to the calorie equation. I think you hate it too.
Right.
I don't track. I don't believe you track, right? Sean Baker doesn't track. I mean,
I think it's good early on if you've never counted calories or done any prep or things like that. I think it's good to kind of know, like, wow, this is like 1,000 calories, to get a good idea, a nice baseline. But long term, it's really not sustainable.
Right. You're like, holy shit, I ate 4,000 calories and I thought I only ate 2,500.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of just like, empty calories. There's like somebody chugging down a Gatorade and not even really thinking about it. I think that that's one of the problems in our country, is that like sometimes we think these things are sort of like benign, but just because you don't want to count calories, or just because you don't want to believe that something has a lot of energy in it, doesn't mean that it goes away. And just because I don't track and you don't track and Sean doesn't track, and Seema, my partner on the Power Project podcast, just because we don't track doesn't mean it doesn't count.
Yeah.
It's still there. The calories are still there. And Seema is somebody that he's a little bit more like in the middle, but also if you look at him, you're like, well, he made it. And I feel like I've made it too. I feel like my physique I'm very comfortable with my physique. I just like to do experiments. I like to kind of push myself at times. And Seema's doing jiu-jitsu, and he's pushing himself as a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. So he has that game to kind of like work on. And for me, this is just a game, like kind of gamifying, like trying to get lean and see where it takes me, and then also pay attention to some of the blood work. Like, I don't want to be dismissive.
Sure.
Because sometimes we have a tendency to do that. Oh, well, this might be off a little bit because you train really hard. Your creatine or whatever the different levels are that might be off from training hard. Your kidneys might be a little messed up or something. I still want to be mindful of that.
Right.
And say, okay, well, next time I get tested, let me take a day or two off of training. Are my kidneys still messed up? Because I don't want my kidneys to be messed up. I don't want my health to be massively compromised. Now, if my health is partially compromised here and there, obviously I don't matter. I don't care that much about that, because I'm already somebody that rolls the dice with performance enhancing drugs. I try to talk about that as much as I can. I don't feel like I'm a health or longevity coach, although sometimes some of the stuff I talk about does overlap into that. Just by the nature of what we talk about. I've been talking for years and years about, things like walking and just exercise and getting outside and doing things in general. But I hope that I'm not ever trying to portray being some sort of like longevity and like that I have all these answers on like health. I don't.